Hey, sports card fans, it's John, a Boggs fan. Hope you're all doing well. I don't normally do a video in which I don't show off any cards, but this is going to be one of those videos. It's not a rant video, it's just something that has recently been on my mind, and I thought I would do a video about it, and it concerns my thought that Leaf has finally jumped the shark when it comes to parallel cards. Now, for those of you in my generation or older, you probably have heard the term jump the shark. For those watching this that are of the younger generation, you may have not heard of that term before. But jumping the shark, and it typically refers to a television series or a movie, it's reaching a point at which far-fetched events are included merely for the sake of novelty, indicative of a decline in quality. And specifically, I believe the term jump the shark originated with the TV show Happy Days. Now, again, those of my generation know Happy Days very well, and one of the main characters, Fonzie. Well, the particular episode, I believe, was later in that series, I think toward the series end of Happy Days, and the particular episode was, you know how cool Fonzie was. Well, I guess he was water skiing and literally jumps over a caged shark as a stunt. And they say that the stunt was so unlike Fonzie and outside of the Happy Days world that it came to be seen as a cheap stunt. So why do I think Leaf has jumped the shark in terms of parallels? Well, before I get to that, I want to give a little bit of a history or perspective of parallel cards, and to a similar extent insert cards, because I think they all play a part in what I feel card companies are doing and maybe worried about for the future. So I think, I could be wrong, but I think the first parallel card was in 1992 Topps. They came out with a parallel version of their base card, and it was a gold version. Basically, it was the same base card, but had gold foil over the lower banner with the player's name and the team. And these were inserted in packs of cards. And over time, you would get gold parallels. They started doing silver foil. I think not too long after that was like platinum foil, things like that. And also in the early to mid 90s, you started seeing the refractor technology, especially with Topps Finest, enter sports cards. Also, a little bit later into the mid to late 90s, card companies again trying to sell product, the base product. They came up with autographed cards as inserts, and then game used memorabilia as also inserts. Now, in terms of advancement, you can't do much with autographs. Okay, you have on-card autographs, you have sticker autographs. There's not too much more innovation card companies can do with autographs. All right, so I think that's something, generally speaking, that I think can live on in the future with card companies. Obviously, you have new players coming into the game, all these rookies. There's always going to be an interest in veteran players, Hall of Fame players that may still be alive. So I think the future history of autograph cards is fine and will continue. When it comes to memorabilia, again, there's only so much you can do with memorabilia cards. Now, when memorabilia cards first came out, there was a decent supply, even for veteran players or even retired players. There is a decent amount of memorabilia out there that the card companies purchased and cut up into small pieces, and they were game used memorabilia, whether it was a piece of a bat, jersey, a patch of a jersey. I don't know when it started, but card companies even started cutting up pieces of cleats, of batting gloves, of fielding gloves. And that continued, but it continued at such a pace over the years that the supply, especially for retired players, started shrinking. And even now with modern players, it used to be on the back of a card. It would say, congratulations, you have received a piece of game-used jersey of X player. You don't see the words game used much today. Now, there's still some game-used jerseys and whatnot from the current players. But for veteran players, and especially retired players, that inventory is really starting to dry up. So now you're seeing language as event worn. So it could be a jersey that a player wears at some signing event or some other promotional thing that all they do is put the jersey on for an hour or two, and then they include that in a card as, hey, you have a piece of a jersey of Mike Trout. Well, he wore this at the All-Star Game press conference or something. It loses its luster. It's because it's not game used. So, all right, back to parallels. So I talked about, autographs. Those I think will be around and will remain. I think they will remain popular. Game used memorabilia, I think, has its limits. Maybe continue with the newer, younger players because there'll be more of a supply. But I think you're going to find that for veteran players, and especially retired players, Hall of Fame players, as the years go on, that inventory is going to completely dry up. So back to the parallels. You started with the gold foil, silver foil. Then have the refractor technology. Then card companies said, okay, well, let's do different colored borders. So now you have a red border, a blue border, a gold border, a silver border. With the refractors, it was just the main refractor. Well, now let's try instituting colors. So now you have the gold refractor, you have the red refractor, you have the green refractor, the blue refractor, and so on and so on. And after a while, that got to be limiting. So they said, okay, well, let's maybe try to come up with patterns. So you have the superfractor, you have the X-fractor, you have the wave refractor, and all these different patterns of refractors. And whether it's called refractor or, Panini calls it prism, it's sort of the same technology. And so it seems over the last 10, especially like 5 years, the card companies have just exploded the number of parallels that they have included in products. And a lot of those parallels, again, to try to keep the interest in collectors, because collectors are saying, hey, we don't put much value into base cards anymore. Even the hot rookies. Maybe initially you may get some, PSA 10s of Julio Rodriguez, but even those may see, pretty decent value. And then after hundreds and thousands get graded, there you can probably find a base tops Julio Rodriguez in a PSA 10 for $5-10. Collectors today, and again, it's some of the fault of the collectors, investors, flippers, wherever you fall on the spectrum. They want the hits. They want the low serial numbered cards. They want the fancy, shiny autograph, parallel this, whatever. So the card companies have had to try to come up with new parallels. I mean, you can only collect, gold. Hey, here's another gold border parallel. All right. Card companies need to keep innovating and coming up with new stuff to keep the interest of collectors. It's almost like buying Oreos. You want that creamy filling there, but you need to buy the outside cookies to the Oreo. Those are the base cards, okay, in my opinion. So what have the card companies done? Again, they've tried to come up with so many different parallels, it's nauseating. So here's one example that I have. For 2019 Prism. Now this is just for Boggs cards because this is part of my checklist, and this is how I got to the whole thing with Leaf here. But for 2019 Prism, here are the following parallels. All right, you have the base card. Then you have the Black Finite Prism, the Blue Mojo Prism, the Blue Prism, Blue Wave Prism, Burgundy Shimmer Prism, Carolina Blue Prism, not to be confused with the regular Blue Prism, Cosmic Haze Prism, Forest Green Flash Prism, Gold Prism, Green Prism, Hyper Blue Prism, Hyper Green and Yellow Prism, Hyper Purple and Green Prism, Lime Green Donut Circles Prism, Navy Blue Kaleidoscope Prism, Neon Orange Donut Circles Prism, Pink Prism, Power Plaid Prism, Purple Prism, Red Mojo Prism, Red Prism, Red, White, and Blue Prism, Shimmer Prism, Silver Prism, Snake Skin Prism, White Sparkles Prism, and Zebra Stripes Prism. Enough prisms for you? It's, again, getting to be a bit ridiculous. And so what brings me to Leaf. Recently, I was updating my Wade Boggs checklist, and I noticed that Wade Boggs was included in Leaf's 2022 Exotic set. And fortunately, he's only included in one card. It happens to be a dual auto card with Roger Clemens. And of course, they all happen to be one of ones. All these parallel versions of Leaf, they're all one of ones. Well, let me tell you, I'm not going to be buying any of them. I'm not going to be buying product to hopefully find one of those one of one parallels. And because they're one of ones, either sellers are going to ask the world for them, or other collectors of Roger Clemens or other whatever. And no, I'm not even going to attempt to go after them, but they're in my checklist. So here is the list. And you may be familiar with 2022 Leaf Exotic or not. Now, Exotic, I think they're trying to go for, again, exotic type patterns. Maybe that's why they called it that. But here are the parallel versions of 2022 Leaf Exotic. You have the base. You have the butterfly pattern. You have the cheetah pattern. The crocodile. You have the fish pattern. The giraffe pattern. The parrot pattern. The peacock pattern. Snakeskin, tiger, turtle, and zebra. You know, I sort of feel for the card companies a little bit, because again, they're trying to be innovative, come up with new stuff. But when you have to resort to a parrot pattern parallel, a peacock, a giraffe, I think you're sort of jumping the shark here. That's just my opinion. But what more can these card companies do? Honestly, it's something I'd like to know in the comments what your thoughts are for the future of card companies and innovation. I think the whole NFT stuff, I think, may have sort of fizzled. You don't hear too much about NFTs now. Digital cards, I know Topps Bunt has been around for quite a while, in which you would buy digital, specially designed cards to keep in your, I don't know, folder or something. I've never bought a Topps Bunt card. I don't think I ever will. Are the future of card collecting, hey, saying, hey, what do you do for a hobby? Oh, I collect baseball cards. Oh, really? Yeah, well, like what type of cards do you have? Oh, well, let me pull it up on my phone, and yeah, here are the cards that I have. They're pictures of cards. They're not really actual cards. I know that's not going to interest me. Um, I don't know. Are cards going to become digital sometime in the future? Maybe way in the future. But for actual cards, what more can card companies do? You have the various color parallels. You have the technology, but what more technology beyond these refractors or prisms? Are they going to become holographic? You know, back in the day, back in the late 60s and the 70s, early 80s, you had the like the Kellogg's, like the 3D. That's an old technology. Sportflix used to have, you know, you could turn the card, you know, this way and stuff and see different pictures and different players and stuff. That's old technology. So, and again, in a sense, I feel bad for the card companies that have to keep innovating in terms of what collectors want. And some of that is on us because we keep saying, hey, we're only interested in the hits. And the card companies are producing some sets that are strictly hits. Mike Baseball Collector, I think he was talking about, was it 2022 Topps Tier 1? That it's like $250 a box and you get 2 cards. Now, the 2 cards probably have, they're probably autographed with some memorabilia or patches on them or whatever, but you don't know who you're going to get. I don't see that as the main future of cards. I don't see the card companies going solely to sets that just have hits. Because one, the price point of that is such that, you know, $250 a box, I'm not buying a box. I doubt kids are buying a box at $250 for 2 cards or even 4 cards. So I think maybe there's a niche for that, for strictly a hit product, but for their base sets, for other sets where they have base cards and parallels as inserts to try to get collectors to buy them, they're going to have to come up with new stuff. So would love to know in the comments what your thoughts are in terms of parallels and inserts. Where's the hobby going to be going in the next 5 or 10 years? Do you think Leaf has finally jumped the shark in terms of the type of parallels? And what other crazy parallels would you think of for Topps or Panini or Leaf to come up with? I don't know. I'm sure some of you could come up with some really crazy and outlandish types of parallel patterns out there. So I think that's all I have, what I wanted to talk about. Again, it's not necessarily a rant. It's more of a just some of these crazy parallels that are coming out now, and more of a question of what's the future of baseball cards going to look like. And with all of that, that's probably why I am more and more into vintage baseball cards. With vintage baseball cards, other than maybe some error variations, there's just one card of that particular player in that particular year. And what that allows you to do is appreciate the card itself, for the design, for the history, for the player, for their stats, for everything. And it's more for the enjoyment of that card than some fancy different parallel version that there's one of 40. So with that, that's all I have for you. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.